The Border Management Authority has entered the final stretch of its high-stakes return leg phase, launched at the start of this month and set to conclude this week. With over 25,000 travellers processed daily at the Beitbridge border post alone, the operation is under intense pressure as holidaymakers flood back into South Africa through its entry points. BMA Commissioner Dr. Michael Masiapato says the numbers could surpass the 400,000 departures recorded during the festive exodus. Joint operations with the SANDF and other agencies have been deployed to curb illegal crossings and ease congestion. We're joined by Dr. Masiapato to unpack the scale, strategy and strain behind this critical border operation. A very good afternoon to you, Dr. Masiapato. Thank you for your time. As you assess some of the bigger impacts and the work ahead, what are the biggest logistical challenges the BMA has faced during this return leg phase? Because for one, as holiday makers were venturing out, we saw snaking queues. What's happening at this stage?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Paul. We really appreciate the opportunity as the Border Management Authority. Yes, Paul, this is a very big operation for us, and of course we always plan as much as we can in as far as this particular period is concerned. But one of the biggest realities, Paul, that we are facing is the fact that these borders that we have, especially the land borders, as you will know, we really inherited them from the apartheid past. They were never built for the purposes of moving the volumes in terms of the people that we deal with, but also they were not, designed for the purposes of the numbers of even trucks that we deal with, the passenger vehicles, the number of taxis that we deal with, the buses and all of those. So that is the first real reality that we have to be traversing in this particular period. But however, we do agree that there is work that is underway, as we always emphasize, the public-private partnership that is going to help us to redesign this port to make sure that we are able to do the work. But that is the fundamental issue. If you think about, for example, the exit leg, the challenges we dealt with at Libombo around the issue of corridor management, once again, the port becomes a strangled place because the entire N4 becomes open, you get to the port, is very squeezed. Now, in terms of the return leg, indeed, if you talk about Beitbridge, a lot of buses that comes through from the continent, coming from Malawi, coming from Zambia, and all of the other places coming through into the port. And therefore, we have to facilitate all of these. Hence, we then operate by creating temporary processing areas within the port, makeshift processing areas using park homes and all of those. And sometimes in those particular areas, you do have some challenges in terms of your systems, your computers and all of that. But we do the best with what we have to be able to deal with the volumes.
Security and efficiency have been imperative during such a time, you say, requires a great depth of planning. How has the BMA been able to ensure security? I know that you did rope in the SANDF, but the high traveller volumes were of a significant amount in terms of processing. Talk to us about the plan in terms of security.
Yeah, you see, security is one of the fundamental, realities that we deal with during this particular period. And the reason why that becomes fundamental is because any kind of your criminal network will always want to take advantage of this particular period when we have a lot of people traveling. At the same time, they also want to be pushing their own nefarious activities. So what we do as the Border Management Authority is to bring in other structures to be able to help us. Because at the end of the day, the ecosystem is too sophisticated, and therefore we are not able just exclusively ourselves to deal with the issues. And that is why we bring in our colleagues from the South African Police Service, but more critically, we bring in members from the South African National Defence Force. Now, part of the issue that becomes more sophisticated is criminality that happens outside port, where people avoid coming to the port. They try to enter the country through the vulnerable segments. If you talk about Libombo, that is through the Limpopo River and all of that. But of course, this time around, we are also very much grateful that the leadership of the South African National Defence Force also assisted us by bringing in some marine units that assisted in terms of doing some patrol patrols within the Limpopo River with the speedboats. That has actually assisted us to make sure that we mitigate the illegal movement that used to be the case. But also the issue of the use of technology such as drones in this instance has been very much helpful, because we are able to see the entire activity in port, out of port, through the drone from the air, and on that basis we are able to respond very effectively.
You say people entering the vulnerable segments. We know that illegal crossings have been a massive headache during this point in time. The Beitbridge border post has also caused a lot of the big challenges. What permanent solutions do you think are needed there? Because, I mean, it's one thing to prepare for big holidays and festivity sessions, but there is movement on a day-to-day.
Yes, indeed. I mean, the work that we do, Mpo, is not just now in the festive season. It is an entire year operation, 24-hour operation, and all of that. And that is why we're very much grateful when we got some bit of funding to be able to procure the drones. And we were also able, as the Border Management Authority, to train some of our border guards as the trained pilots. I mean, as the drone pilots. So on that basis, the deployment of the drones in this instance is not just for now, but it is something that is fairly continuous. And that then becomes very much critical. It's just that sometimes the work that we do in between might not be that much covered, primarily because you will find that probably the media is not there or anything. But at the end, we continue to do the work throughout the year. And there are a lot of interceptions. I mean, just a typical example, in the past 24 hours, once again, help with the assistance of the drones, but also working together with members of the Defence Force. Yesterday only we were able to intercept over 70 individuals that were attempting to enter the country illegally. So those are some of the interventions that we do. But at the end of the day, if you talk about what is the long-term solution, one of the things that is very much apparent, as they do in other jurisdictions, you need some element of a barrier to be able to do this work, so that when you talk about a vulnerable segment, you are referring to a place where the fence might be a bit vandalized. But in this instance, everywhere is actually vulnerable because the fence is non-existent. So long-term issues, again, is to put a bit of barrier, which will assist us to make sure that at least we are able to monitor areas of vulnerability instead of being overstretched. Because now, once you are actually able to intercept in this other area, then there's movement on the other. And the people are also not that much, dumb. They basically move around. And that is why, Mpo, you'll remember what we said during the exit leg. Some of the Zimbabweans avoided coming to Beitbridge, and they went to Grobler's Bridge, which is the one to Botswana. We intercepted them that side, over 3,400 all in all. But at the end, it was an attempt to move away from one area. So hence, our work is also supposed to be that agile to be able to deal with the issues as they move.
Perhaps let's talk numbers. I mean, you've already mentioned 70 individuals being, barred from interception in the past 24 hours. Can you share data on the illegal crossings or contraband interceptions since the 1st of January?
Yeah, so basically since the 1st of January, all in all, if we talk about Beitbridge only, because we are definitely going to aggregate the figures nationally, and we are going to give a proper report to South Africa on the 1st of Feb.
Yes.
But for now, let's just talk about Beitbridge. So from the 1st of January, when we started with the return leg, just in Beitbridge, we talk about 549 individuals that we have actually intercepted attempting to enter the country illegally. And out of that number, we talk about 2 key ring leaders, which we intercepted. I think it was on the 3rd, if not the 4th, when I was also there on the ground. Those ring leaders, as we always say, they are actually going to be facing the process of legality within the country, because we did not deport them, but we handed them over to the police in Musina to make sure that they face the full might of the law. You have also been aware, obviously, of the interception. Among the number I have just cited, there were about 20 children that we also intercepted. But those ones were not entering, they were attempting to exit the country illegally. And we actually believed these are the children that are, belonging to some of the parents who are in South Africa, who literally just sent them through to the bushes for them to cross into Zimbabwe. So those are the kind of things that we deal with. So in those instances, we had to make sure that the Department of Social Development take care of those children and ultimately make sure that they get addressed. Additional to the number of just around 500 that I've cited, We also talk about over 200 that were denied entry. These ones, they came to the port, but they just could not qualify to enter the country, either because they were V-listed, meaning that they once overstayed in South Africa, and we banned them from re-entering for 5 years. When they arrive at the port, our system will give a hit, and we deny them entry. Some of them is because they either have a passport that is expired, or the passport that is full, or anything like that. So those are the kind of things that we effectively deal with if we are just to talk about Bait Bridge.
And very lastly, Dr. Masiapato, what lessons do you think can be drawn from this operation which will inform future peak season planning?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we can basically cite, if we are to talk in the broader scheme of things, is the fact that even when we have our own predictions in terms of our historical empirical data, in terms of when will the peak be, for instance, and when will people try to cross, at what point, and all of those kind of issues. One key lesson is the fact that this thing is very much agile. Sometimes we will say, for example, that we are expecting the peak. I mean, a typical example is today. I mean, I was talking to the port commanders in our top ports, whether it is Lebombo, in Bait Bridge, in Maseru, and all of those. And we expected today to be the second biggest peak because next week we are opening schools. And it did not happen. I mean, the numbers are very much sizable and are very much, under control. Now, what happened? The majority actually pushed yesterday and not today. So it's those kind of issues. So these are the kind of lessons that gives us that broader analysis to be able to plot this work better when we go forward. If you look at what happened in Lebombo, once again, very much interesting. Most of the time, we talk about the peak happening on Christmas Day, if we talk about the exit. But in Lebombo, we had people literally coming in numbers on Christmas Day itself. So those are the kind of things that will make the job, or that makes the job a bit very much, or that makes the job to require agility, so that we're able to move as the things move and ultimately do the job.
Okay, thank you so much for your time and that insightful conversation there. BMA Commissioner Dr. Michael Masiapato giving us a sense of some of the logistical challenges at the border management that has been a big headache.